Good question.
It just takes a little bit to get going.
All right, I'm going to mute myself for a sec. I'm just printing out my host copy.
Sure. Oh, just as I forgot to mention it, and I don't think it should be a huge issue, but it's probably worth mentioning. Is so I spoke to Chris yesterday. I was a bit pushed for time at the time. He said he's coming out of a meeting at 10-ish anyway, so he won't be able to join right this second. But it could just be that he ends up being a bit late, so he shouldn't worry.
Okay.
That's all.
Good question.
It takes a little bit. Okay. Ethan.
Yes.
I have the YouTube link. Oh, sorry, this is quite confusing. I have the YouTube link. It is everything we're saying right now. It's streaming, so technically, this closed practice session that we're in isn't closed on YouTube. It's just pulling this as the feed. So, technically, anyone will be able to hear what we're saying. So I will send it to you, so you've got it, because this is sort of the backup. But
do I need to be on that or anything?
You don't need to be on it, and it'll be confusing if you are, because you're going to get two audio feeds. And I was just playing it, and it was really confusing because I thought Charles was saying something. I was like, "Why is Charles saying the same thing he was saying like a minute ago?" Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Chris just messaged me. He said, "Can you send me the Zoom link?"
Wait, so is this going to be the same link for the real thing?
So there's two. There's the one that I sent you before up top. So there's the real Zoom link is this one. And then the YouTube link is that one. The YouTube is obviously the backup.
Right, okay. But as in the Zoom that we're in right now, that's the one that guests are going to join?
Yeah, they just can't see where we are right now.
Right, okay.
Only people with the link that you came on with, basically.
So I stay on this one, basically.
Yeah, just mute yourself and that'd be fine.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
I have come as a panelist, haven't I?
Yes,
okay,
you
good.
have. I'm actually not on the screen, but given I can hear you, I'm going to assume that's why.
Good.
Just sending Chris the link, actually. Okay.
I think my eyesight has gotten worse over lockdown from staring at a computer screen that's exactly 2.5 feet from my eyeballs every single day.
That's true.
It's seriously not good.
No, it really isn't, is it? I remember seeing there's a big study that had a correlation between being indoors and poor eyesight, like in South Korea or something. I think like they found that a lot of people there had stayed indoors, and I can confirm a lot of people do wear glasses there. And so it's the worst, most potent mix, isn't it? Lockdown, because you're indoors, you're not in the sun really.
Yeah.
As a result, and you're staring at everything close. So yeah, I feel the same way, to be honest. Okay.
Have you got any more numbers from yesterday?
As in on the attendee numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're at 62 last time I looked.
Nice.
So it did jump up a little bit yesterday. Again, it's sort of a kind of interesting mix of people. Definitely there's a few local authorities in there, but there's a lot of people I can't quite identify who they would be.
Yeah, it's always the case. Random people that have decided they want to learn more about things.
Okay. Right. Okay, I think we're all good. Oh, thanks for sharing it on LinkedIn as well yesterday.
I know. I realised I was quite late to the game, so.
No, it's appreciated.
And then people, were asking me about it. Now, actually, you get a lot of people ask you things when you post something on LinkedIn. I feel conversations start up that, you weren't expecting.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's one of those platforms. Sometimes people just love to express, sort of say something.
Mm.
Just say good morning. This is Chris Ashley from the RHA.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
The call.
Hi.
Hello to everybody.
We're just waiting for. I probably will end up starting this just slightly before 10 because if you are joining as an attendee right now, you just get this sort of spinning wheel. I know it kind of, some people see that and they sort of go, oh my goodness, I'm not in the right place or something. So
that's not as bad as the one where like we have these live shares and the technology we're using is that anyone who's in the lobby can knock. So all the panelists just hear this like constant knocking.
Oh, that is bad.
Horrible. It's like it just doesn't stop as well, and just everyone joins and just knock, 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 and it's just like, oh my god, too much.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, we haven't met yet. I'm Charles Watson. I work with Ben on the commercial side of MSOL.
Oh, hello. Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I'm sorry I was not able to make the pre-meet yesterday. Apologies about that, but Ben sort of briefed me, so hopefully good to go. So I look forward to the session.
you'll be the first. I think the order is yourself, Chris, is first up. So
Sure.
I mean, I shared the agenda with you before.
Absolutely.
Okay. Right. Just waiting for Ben and.
Yeah, so Chris, I'll do an introduction, then I'll hand it off to you. And when I hand it off to you, you just share your screen and I'll unshare mine.
Sure. Okay, that works. That works for me.
Hello.
Oh,
hi, Amandeep.
How you doing? Sorry I'm late.
No worries.
Fine.
3 minutes.
It's plenty of time. Are you down in Bankside still? You're actually.
No, I'm working from home today.
Oh, okay. I see. I was just curious what it was, what it's been like recently.
Are you back in the office, Amandeep?
I go in maybe 2 times a week.
Oh God, I'm
I really
jealous.
like it. Yeah, no, I like being there when it's not so busy. I got a padella for lunch, and it took me all of 5 minutes to get my pasta.
It's the quickest.
The queues are normally, around the block.
How lunchtime has changed.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it must be quiet in central London.
Very.
I think Victoria is like a ghost town at the moment.
I was going to say I might push us live actually because, as I said before, if you're an attendee, you don't see anything. So it's just better if they see this sort of holding screen. So
yeah, why don't you push them live and then everybody mutes, but I'll stay unmuted, and then I'll just say we're going to get started in a minute.
Yeah,
something like that.
That's okay with everyone.
Okay.
Okay. Oh gosh, I've got so many things on the front of my screen. I can't actually see how you take it off right now. Okay. We should be going live.
Hi, everybody. We'll be getting started in about 1 minute. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the EMSOL webinar, Reducing Pollution in the Urban Supply Chain. My name is Charles Watson, and I'll be hosting this event for the next 60 minutes. So managing pollution in the urban supply chain has always been an important topic, but with the current COVID-19 pandemic, it's crucial for respiratory health right now, and an important part of accelerating cities back to their normal operating levels while keeping their local communities safe. We're already seeing second waves of coronavirus in the UK and around the globe, and we'll be living with this respiratory infection for many years to come. So it's great that we have such an incredible team of speakers joining us today to give you their experiences and insights on why reducing pollution matters in the urban supply chain, and also insights on investments they've made which drive improvements every single day. I'll go through the agenda, give you some tips to make this webinar as useful as possible. But first, we want to say thanks for joining us today. Across the UK and across the globe, we're experiencing an unprecedented and rapid change in business and consumer behavior due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And everyone on this webinar today is directly and indirectly impacted professionally and personally. Thanks for taking the time to present today and for taking the time to learn how we can reduce pollution, help accelerate our cities back to normal operating levels, and help maximize respiratory health in our local communities. Okay, so on to a little housekeeping to make this webinar as great for you as possible. If you're having any audio problems now or during the webinar, you can send a chat message within Zoom to the meeting host, Ben Fielden. You can do this by clicking on the chat thought bubble on the bottom or top of your Zoom screen. Type your message in the type here to chat box and click on send to send the message. We'll be keeping everyone but the host and presenters muted, but you can ask questions at any time through the Zoom QA interface to Ben host. The QA label should be at the top right or bottom of the Zoom interface. Click that, then click ask a question and type your question into the I want to ask a question box, then press send. These questions will go to the panelists and they won't be seen by other attendees. Ben will capture all the questions and we'll go through them at the end during the Q&A. Okay, now that we're through all that, here's a quick look at the agenda. We're going to start off with a discussion about the urban supply chain after COVID-19 with Chris Ashley, Head of Policy, Environment and Regulation of the Road Haulage Association. Then we'll get into the urban supply chain and how we can improve the last mile with Laura Jacklin, Senior Project Officer at Cross River Partnership. We'll also have a presentation from Emandeep Kelly from Better Bankside on noise and air pollution in urban areas. And then I'll give a quick overview of EMSOL and the role that we play in all this. And then Ben, our operations manager, will actually go through and do a solution demo of the EMSOL platform. And then we'll finish up with a Q&A that'll be run by Ben Fielden. So we're also going to be trying something new, which is running 2 quick polls during the webinar. They're 1 question each, and all you need to do is select your answer, then click submit when you're done. It should take no more than 10 to 15 seconds. Then we'll share the anonymized results. We actually can't identify who answered each poll, and that won't be shared. The first polling window should pop up on your screen just about now. And the question is, what are the 2 most significant pollution challenges that you're currently trying to solve? Please select 2 choices. We'll run the poll for 15 seconds, then close the poll and share the results. So if you could just go ahead and answer this, select 2 that make the most sense, and then we'll close the poll in just a few seconds. Okay, I think, Ben, why don't we close the poll and then let's share the results of the poll. Okay, excellent. Here are the results. We're not going to discuss these right now, but we'll address them during the EMSOL overview session and also during the Q&A. But without further delay, I'd like to hand the presentation over to Chris Ashley of the Road Haulage Association.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Right, let me just make sure I can share my screen and put up the presentation. Right. Right, so can I just check, can everybody see the presentation I've got up front there?
I can.
Brilliant, okay. Yeah, so thanks very much, Charles, for your introduction. It's a pleasure to be able to speak here today. Thanks for inviting me. I think it gives sort of an opportunity for me to update you on the RHA's perspective on sort of improving air quality within the urban area. You know, to emphasise the progress we've been making, but I think also to comment on, you know, some of the challenges and complexities that we face. And not least, you know, in light of coronavirus, because that is the new context we face. And as I'm sure, you know, everybody is familiar with, it's had a massive impact on our lives, but also on the economy as well. And I think we need to reflect and understand that. Very quick introduction about myself. As you can see, my name is Chris Ashley. I joined the RHA last September to lead their policy on the environment. And I do want to say, you know, that, you know, we as an association and our members, we are very committed to investing in the green technology needed to improve air quality. Just to give you a flavour of sort of my organisation, we represent over 7,200 members, 85% of whom are SMEs. But, you know, whilst it's always very exciting to look to the future and to look to the technology that's coming online, we also have to deal with today's operational challenges. And as I say, COVID-19 has had an impact on that. What I just want to cover in my presentation and scoot over this really in the 5 to 10 minutes I've got with you, really just to say that logistics ultimately is demand-led, but we have to work within sometimes a very complex but contradictory policy framework. Just to show you some thoughts there. I want to sort of emphasize, you know, we have as an industry, I think, made a really good start on air quality. I want to share some charts with you sort of to demonstrate that. To show you what our view is in terms of the path forwards, in terms of how we intend to invest in air quality and on a longer term decarbonisation. But then also just to bring this back in terms of the here and now and accommodating the current crisis that we're in relating to COVID-19. So logistics is demand-led. I mean, I think that that's the point here. You know, ultimately, my sector, my members, we respond to the needs of customers, wherever they might be. And if those customers move, we will move with them, basically. And so it's really just to make that point that, you know, the policy framework that we work within, so I think must balance some competing demands of ultimately the customer demand. If there was no customer demand, then we wouldn't exist. And then following on from that, though, are then some of the complexities, like the emissions that we have from current technology, the noise considerations. There's a live issue right now, which is road space efficiency. As I'm sure attendees on this call will be aware, you know, the government has an active travel agenda. They're looking to encourage people out of their cars and to do walking and cycling. Fine. However, these pop-up cycle lanes that are appearing up, we believe are causing congestion, and congestion leads to emissions. So there's a balancing act to be had here, I think, in terms of the next steps forward, in terms of promoting the active travel agenda, but also making sure we don't choke off the economic recovery through unintended congestion. And the final point that the policy framework, I think, needs to consider is asset life cycles. You know, lorries are expensive kit. Okay, you know, a typical lorry starts at about £100,000, and from the commercial side of things, our members would expect to see a full return on that investment over about 12 years. And one of our issues is that policy at the moment doesn't recognise asset life cycles. We sometimes get new initiatives come in, a keenness to introduce new technology, which doesn't respect existing technology, and it can undermine the value of the existing technology. Now, in some respects, that's a consequence that occurs commercially anyway. The point is, how can policy support the asset life cycle so that the whole cost of the asset is realized? So those are just some of the challenges that we face when it comes to investing in air quality and sort of some of the competing demands that we have to balance. Now, I mentioned about what we've been doing already. A couple of charts here. This chart you see in front of you is taken from the Department for Transport, and this shows overall NOx emissions by transport mode. And what I want to focus on is that green line. That green line, which you see sloping very nicely downwards, that's HDVs. And that's as a result of a £1.9 billion investment that hauliers have made since 2013 in the latest technology, which has seen a marked improvement in emission levels from HDVs. And I contrast that, I have to say this, with the red line, which is cars and taxis, which are flatlined. And then if you look at the second line down, which is the black line, that's vans. And isn't it interesting that emissions from vans is rising? And is that because we've seen a greater increase in home deliveries from vans? So I think this chart here is actually quite telling in terms of the progress that HGVs have made, but also giving an overall picture of where transport sits at the moment in terms of reducing NOx emissions. And a further cut of that data is supplied by the National Atmospheric and Emissions Inventory. Here, you've got NOx emissions by all sources. So it's not just transport, but also by industry. And basically, the segments to look at are the green segments there, where back in 2013, this was lorries and buses accounted for nearly 10% of NOx emissions. That compared with 29% from industry. Yet by 2017, the percentages have altered. NOx emissions from lorries and buses have declined to 5%, and yet increased from 29% to 34% by industry. And again, it's just telling the same story. As a result of this investment that hauliers have made, you can see this consequential improvement in air quality. And this final chart, I just want to show you, this is the number of HDVs currently registered in the UK. It's just over 500,000. And the stacked boxes there is broken down by the Euro emission standards. And so basically the box to look at is the green box at the top. Those are the Euro 6 lorries that have come online since 2014. And again, you can see how over the years, there's been a greater investment in the Euro 6. And again, it's telling the same story. That has led to a consequential improvement in NOx emissions from HGVs. So just want to move on very quickly, just to say, well, what's the RHA's approach to this? We are committed to investing in the latest cleanest technology. Back in January, we published this paper, Eliminate, Minimize, Offset. And whilst the big word there is decarbonisation, the arguments we've articulated in that paper equally apply to air quality. And essentially, our approach when we come to investing in the technology is we want to base it on sustainability values. And our definition of sustainability goes back to the 1980s, where this first emerged. It's about environmental, social, and economic well-being being intrinsically linked. So if we want environmental well-being, we also need to invest in the economic well-being to ensure that we realise the environmental benefits that we want. And I think, in simple terms, if you have a healthy economy, you can get the tax returns in to then invest in the environment that we all want to see. We also want to see an evidence-based public policy framework, and rhetoric which champions those three elements of sustainability. And also just to plug this document, what we want is a roadmap to chart the way forward, because again, I attend lots of seminars, where the technology, the potential of the technology is great and it's very exciting, particularly on decarbonisation, particularly whether we go down an electric route, whether we go down a hydrogen route, all very exciting. But that is still some years off. And our issue is, how do we get there? And what we want to see is a roadmap with clear standards, clear technical standards, which chart the way forward to the ultimate goal that we want to see, which I think is either electric or hydrogen powered vehicles. That framework will then allow our members to invest with confidence in the technology that we all want to see. And that's our core ask as we move forwards with the green agenda. Finally, though, just to wrap this up, we do have the COVID-19 crisis, and that slide just reflects, lots and lots of job losses being announced daily as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. And we cannot ignore this. And it goes back to the point I make about economic well-being. We must ensure that we have a healthy economy to invest in the environment that we want. And the slide I showed you there, I appreciate there's a lot of detail. I'm very happy for these slides to be circulated afterwards. This slide here just shows you the impact that coronavirus had on the haulage sector at the height of the crisis. This was based on a survey we conducted in June, which what that chart shows you is basically the number of lorries that were laid up during the pandemic. And basically, if you look down the list, removals, 96% of all removal lorries based on the survey were laid up. Stands to reason, no one was moving during the coronavirus pandemic. Next one up, car transporting, 89% of car transporters were laid up. Stands to reason, all the car showrooms were shut, nobody was buying cars, etc., etc. Okay, and so this is just to give you a flavour of how COVID has impacted the haulage sector. But one of the key stats there, and I am coming to the conclusion, is this 73% number you see at the bottom there. That number, I'll read it out, says 73% of firms say their cash flow is significantly reduced or worse as a result of COVID. And surely that's the key point as we come out of COVID. Yes, it's very exciting to talk about the environment and what we want to invest in, but there is the here and now. Businesses are facing very severe cash flow problems. And I think for us, how we get out of COVID now depends on sequencing of activity. I'm very aware that certainly in London, the mayor is very keen to start piling on the green charges again. Well, there's a debate to be had there because, if you're piling cost onto businesses that are already facing cash flow issues, is that going to put them out of business? And therefore we have a consequential rise in unemployment. These factors have to be considered and balanced. So in conclusion, what we're looking for as we go forward is sequencing of activity, sensible sequencing of activity. And we want a supportive regulatory framework that's balanced, these 5 things I discussed at the top: customer demand, reducing emissions, making sure noise pollution is minimized, making sure that the road space is as efficient as possible, it's minimizing congestion, and also respecting the asset life cycles in those assets that we invest in. And finally, we have a phrase that we advocate at every opportunity, which is to say, well-designed standards phased in appropriately as market supply allows works well for everyone. If everybody could sign up to that mantra, then I think an association we'd be very happy. And I'll leave it there. So,
okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, shall I hand back to Charles?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Chris. That presentation set us up really well for our next presenter, Laura Jacklin of Cross River Partnership. And I think a lot of interesting questions are going to come out of your presentation, Chris. So thanks for sharing all that information. Laura, do you want to share your slides?
Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to share my slides. Is that working now? Can everyone see that?
Yep, I can.
Okay, perfect. So just Right. Yeah. That was a really interesting slide presentation there. Actually, I'd just like to tell everyone this is not going to be massively on HDVs, but they definitely have a place to play in the urban supply chain. I'm Laura Jacklin. I am a senior project officer at Cross River Partnership, and I'm going to kind of go through what we are doing specifically in London and the supply chain and last mile and relation to air pollution. So if you haven't heard of us, we're Cross River Partnership. We're a non-for-profit and impartial partnership in London, and we've been around for about 25 years now. As you can see on the map on the left, we have 10 central local authorities, 18 business organisations, which include business improvement districts, and 6 strategic agencies, which include GLA, TfL, Network Rail. And just moving on to our vision, we definitely put forward people, places and projects as our sustainable view of business in London and also improving air quality. And we believe that all these three are put through all the projects that we do. And even though a lot of our work is in London, a lot of these things that we are doing on projects can be put in any other place in the UK. So I'll just go through a few of the projects in a bit more detail today and how we feel that those projects have helped showcase challenges and solutions for the urban supply chain. So here are some current projects that we're running at the moment. We get funded by different organisations and some of our members as well. So we have Healthy Streets Every Day, which is funded by TfL. This is all about street space changes. As we've spoken before, there's a lot of things going on in residential streets and how these can be healthier for the environment. We also have recently started EV fleet-centred local energy systems, and the acronym for that is FLES, which is a lot easier to say. And this is actually a project that's come from Innovate and work we've done with UPS. We worked on a smart electric urban logistics plan, which I will be going into more detail about, but this was all about changing and retrofitting vehicles in the urban supply chain, especially in denser areas. And then 2 other ones that I think are quite important to what we have done recently are the Clean Air Villages project, which we're now running for the 3rd year, and that's been funded by DEFRA and partners of local authorities that we work with, and that I'll be going into more detail. And then something else that we do is we're part of the Central London Sub-Regional Transport Partnership. We actually chair this, and there's 10 central local authorities involved in that, and we talk about different transport issues in the London area and ways to innovate and find better solutions to deal with challenges. Some that aren't on here but that are on our website are Clean Air Thames, where we're looking at retrofitting vessels on the Thames so that also reduces emissions from that sector, so it's not just road that we work on. And then Freeview, which is a European project that we worked on logistics as well, is something to look at, all on our website. And I really want to thank EMSOL for letting us speak today, because we are currently working on a project with them and noise monitoring project with freight. So it's an opportunity for us to talk about how that has come about from some of these other projects we've worked on. So just to give you a bit of air quality context and the reason why we do the work we do in London, the stat of 70% has actually just come out since COVID, and there is a real big issue in places like London with air pollution. I don't know if any of you have lived in London or work in London. This isn't just freight, it can be buildings. It's a very dense area, which means that we do have a lot of air pollution, and traffic is related to it. So a few stats just to kind of bring this home to everyone. We actually have seen links between air pollution and premature deaths, especially in Londoners. There's been very many cases on this, even in the news. And it does have a cost. Air pollution has always had a cost to the economy, the health of those living there as well. Then I've just put this diagram from Global Action Plan, who've recently come up with a business for clean air idea for corporates as well as other businesses, and looking now actually about not only your deliveries or your freight, it's actually how as a business can you create a better, cleaner air for everyone. So you know, this is something that's big, and actually it's become even bigger since COVID, and the health sector has really shown that air quality and COVID could have links. So a few key challenges before I go into the projects that we've definitely noticed during working in the supply chain. And this is working with businesses that are both small as well as larger businesses, getting deliveries or owning their own fleets. We've worked with couriers like DPD and UPS. So these are just challenges we've found throughout the projects that we've done. One is stakeholders. There's a lot of different stakeholders in the urban supply chain. You have those who are delivering, you have the local authorities, you have businesses, you have residents. They all have different agendas with different responsibility, and they have different messaging on both business, on both deliveries, on air quality. So that can be a key challenge, to get a common theme between all of those different stakeholders. Another challenge is data. There is some data, but I do think there's still more to do with data. You know, we do have data that shows congestion has increased over the years, especially in areas in London. We've also seen the air pollution data, but I do think there's definitely more work to do. And it's interesting from the previous slides about the Knox and the different vehicle types as well. There's something really important there to look at the different vehicle types and what is actually polluting and where they're polluting. So the challenge is that there is a lack of data, or a lack of joint up data as such, and that would, you know, that comes from the different stakeholders having different agendas. And then health is something that we've definitely noticed in the last few years. There is maybe not as much as a relationship with health and urban supply chain and the links that are there with air pollution in local systems. And then finance. This always comes up whenever we're talking about urban supply chain, when it comes to suppliers or businesses. If there was a way to change and be better, it's actually got sometimes a higher outset costs to switch over this behaviour. And as the previous panelist said, you know, there is investment in vehicles that does need to be taken into consideration. And, you know, the infrastructure overhauls for changing is also something that has come up as a challenge before. It doesn't mean that these challenges can't have solutions. So this project, Clean Air Villages, is funded by DEFRA, and we've actually been working now for 3 years. We are in our 3rd year now. We started in 2018 with 10 partners, so 10 local authorities, and you can see on the map on the right here, there's quite a big range of different areas. And these have all been found as air pollution hotspots with large congestion and also very high footfall. So we're not just looking at an A road where there's not a lot of people walking, we're looking at areas where the population is walking near roads and there is a high congestion rate. These areas in London are all very, very different. I mean, if anyone's ever been to Shepherd's Bush compared to Tooting, it's a completely different area, different makeup, different local authority. And throughout the projects, we've actually grown to 12 partners to now 16 partners. In the project, we actually talk to businesses about their deliveries and their servicing and their vehicles that they're using or their suppliers that they're using. And we try to come up with a local solution for that area to reduce air emissions from the vehicles for delivery. So this is very much dedicated to deliveries coming into those areas. We've engaged with over 200 businesses over the 2 years, and that's like fully engaged with one-to-ones, constantly speaking to them. We've talked to over 750 businesses, and in that we've also spoken to not only the small market traders, but also up to the large corporates and other organisations like Low City and the FTA. So some of the things that came from this project were, we realised that the smaller businesses definitely had ways to change over collections that they were doing in London, so local deliveries, to a more sustainable manner. And so that's where the 2 pictures below I'll go through in a little bit more detail. So the shared electric van that we had in Brixton, this came about because there was a lot of businesses going and picking up products from other areas. So they weren't necessarily having a supplier drop things off to them. They were actually going to pick something up with vehicles that were just diesel and polluting, and that, you know, they did struggle having that vehicle. Whereas when we got the shared EV in, it was so that different businesses could use one vehicle and wouldn't have the responsibility of having their own. So it actually did save them some money in the long term, as well as improving air quality for just local mileage. So this was really well utilised, and the council played a big part in that, and the Business Improvement District, in making that accessible for businesses at the start, so they could really understand how useful it was. And we had 10 users constantly using it, and I think it's grown to maybe nearly 20 now. And this just makes sure that those other 10 vehicles are not on the road if they're not needing to be. Then we've also looked at cargo bike schemes that you can see in the right hand side. So this is the same kind of aspect. It's a sharing a resource, so it's a cargo bike delivery scheme. And we've had that in quite a few areas in the areas we've worked in, and that's worked quite well for pharmacies who are delivering to homes, charities who are delivering between stores, and also the food sector. So it's worked really, really well. And then the delivery side of things has been quite useful. So one other thing with the map that I'm just showing you here, that is actually a local directory that we created so that businesses could find local suppliers for, you know, like a plumber, electrician that was using a low emission vehicle, which there are those out there. And we're not saying in any of this that you need to completely change all your delivery systems to cargo bikes and electric vans, because we know that that's not possible. But there are definitely options out there, and there are definitely options for local deliveries that could be changed. A few challenges that did come out of the project and that we've continued to work on are from some of the bigger suppliers. Logistics space in London has really reduced, meaning that, you know, they are having to go further out, which means having to use HDVs, which is still good because they are consolidating in that larger vehicle, but it has meant that it's changed their way of working. Noise comes up quite regularly, noise of deliveries, that in line with the London Lorry Control Scheme that we've obviously heard about before. Regulation in making sure that noise pollution doesn't become an issue. Loading bays, which we've heard about, you know, the different changes in cycle pop-up lanes. Even before that, there was a lot of issues with red routes and loading bay access for the amount of deliveries coming into London. Also the infrastructure issue of, is there enough infrastructure of charging points? Is there enough infrastructure being put in by local authorities to deal with that? And also the different regulations between different boroughs. We have 10 different partners there. They all will have different views on how they want to work with logistics and air pollution. And then just quickly on the air pollution little bubbles I've created here. The reason I've put these here actually is because when we first started the project, there was a lot of businesses talking about CO2 in their sustainability plans, and, you know, we need to reduce CO2. And then throughout the project, actually, we really started to notice the Knox and the PM10 is actually more important when it comes to health of those in those areas. So it's interesting to understand if the data is really looking into more now Knox and PM10. And it was great to see in the slides before that, you know, Knox is something that people are looking at. And just a quick recap of the Soul project, which might be quite interesting for anyone who's looking to change over their infrastructure to have electric fleets. So this project was funded by OLEV and Innovate, and it was a 2.5-year project that we worked on with UPS and UK Power Network. So this wasn't just to electrify your fleet, it was also to trial smart charging technology, so that when you were changing over your fleet, you weren't having to upgrade your system very expensively. So this was working with the UPS Camden Depot, so it was more for their urban delivery scheme. This is not necessarily for, you know, going up and down the M4. This is actually for denser areas, which is where an electric vehicle works quite well. And through this project, 20 vehicles were now fully electric and deployed in central London. It also meant that the smart charging capability really came from this. And you can see that with the tonnage that's CO2 saved. It also showcased not the need to have huge financial impact of updating a system. And from this is where the FLES project has come, the 12-month project we're doing now. to actually look at how smart charging can incentivize larger fleet operators to go electric. So that there is a lot of information here, but all of this is on the website. So I've just gone through it quickly. And then lastly, this is kind of towards the end of the presentation, I wanted to quickly talk about how regulation has changed in London and what we've seen in the last few years. In 2019, there was a big push on climate emergencies in London. About 26 of the boroughs across London and the GLA have now got climate emergencies. And this was really quite focused on being more sustainable, but also the air pollution issues that are there. Now, not all of the boroughs have the same targets or net zero or carbon. So it's interesting to have a look at these and see where boroughs are looking at. Then from COVID, unfortunately, street spaces, well, fortunately and unfortunately, street space program has come about. So it's enabled, changes in the street, which is good for active travel. But we have noticed that this may cause an issue when deliveries go back to normal, if there is a normal, or how can we make sure that deliveries are still done efficiently and sustainably. So these are two big regulations or big changes in spaces that are really important when it comes to air pollution and understanding what is happening on the ground. So what can you do? There is so much that can be done. It's not too much of an uphill battle if everyone works together, that's for sure. And that's what we found in a lot of our projects. Working together in all our projects, we found you learn a lot from other stakeholders, but also create a policy that's everyone is thinking in more the same terms. I would definitely think about looking at organisations and what they are doing. In London, we have Low City, but checking what TfL are doing, checking what GLA are doing. It's always good to know what the regulations that are coming and also being part of that conversation and filtering that information to smaller businesses or bigger businesses, just so everyone is aware of the conversations that are happening. Data is another thing. Creating your own data, because it is key that everyone has a different part in the supply chain and it will affect them differently on how they want to change to be more sustainable. So create your own data set, but also look at different data sets that are out there and see if there's anything you can learn from that. Health, incorporate health into all your scenarios, both for your staff and anyone who are residents in that area, because if you're going into an area, you will be affecting that community in some way, and it's best to make sure that you're doing it in the most healthy and productive way. Now that COVID has come about, we all have to start thinking about health in a different way and how important that actually is. And money, you can actually save money on the long term by looking through the data, by working together. There is definitely ways to save money longer term, and the changes can be done. Now, I've done a quick overview, but realistically, all of this information is on the website. We have so much resources from all of the projects that we've done that will explain in more detail. We have business case studies like the one on the left, where we showcase different businesses that have done so well in changing over, what their results have been, and also what the issues they found. We also have done enabling last mile cycle logistics, which is something that's come up in London quite regularly now. Cycle logistics is bigger for last mile. And then we've created some business case studies on consolidation, infrastructure for EV charging points and things like that, that go through the whole project and the challenge and solutions that you can find from that. So that if you're going through that same journey, you might see those challenges beforehand and actually not have to go through the same thing. So that's kind of it from me. I just wanted to say that all of these resources are online. You can always get a hold of us. We're always willing to have a chat with anyone. And we have got live share webinars as well happening. And these are happening fortnightly with issues on air quality and transport or street spaces. And the next one we have is actually next Thursday, where we'll be talking about ditching diesel and explaining the electric vehicle options, probably more for SMEs, but it can work for everyone. So yeah, that's kind of it from me. Thank you, EMSOL, for hosting this, and also just to say that the challenges on noise that we are facing in some of our projects, we are now doing a project about freight and deliveries in an area in London to work out actually the noise from delivery. So all the projects we do, we find another project from that to check that solution has that challenge has a solution. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Laura. It's so exciting to see all the projects that are helping urban areas get back to normal operating levels without the penalty of pollution. It's a really big challenge. Our next speaker is Amandeep Kelly. I want to just briefly remind everybody how to submit questions before Amandeep starts, but maybe Amandeep, you could share your slides and I'll just quickly go through, remind everybody how to ask a question. The Q&A label should be either at the top right or the bottom of your Zoom interface. Just click that icon, then click Ask Question. Type your question into the I want to ask a question box. I hope I'm not being too obvious here, and then press send. Okay, so without further ado, and we'll answer all those questions at the end. I want to introduce Amandeep Kelly with Better Bankside. Amandeep, you might be muted. Oh, I can't hear you. Maybe everybody else can. Amandeep, I can't hear you. Ben, can you possibly see if there's anything you can do?
I think it must be a technical issue on Amandeep's end, is my guess.
Okay, well, what we can do then is maybe, Ben, you guys can try and work on that. And what we could go straight into the... Oh, Amandeep, is that you?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you perfectly. Fantastic.
Right.
If you can share your screen. Yep.
Sure. Is
awesome.
that good?
Yep, we're good to go. Thank you.
Sorry about that, everybody. Yep, I'm Amandeep from Better Bankside. We're a business improvement district in central London. I'm not sure how familiar people are with bids, but generally this is our patch in SE1. Goes from Blackfriars Road to Borough High Street. We have about 1,000 businesses in our area. We're voted for by the businesses, and they pay us a levy of 1% to represent their needs and and run projects for them and advocate for them. So we just won an election late last year. About 90% of businesses voting for us, and about a 60% turnout, so which is higher than normal. So that's really good. We have quite a strong mandate to do environmental kind of interventions, try and improve things that businesses want. So, I mean, having listened to those two really good presentations, it's clear that they are very much a kind of national or a citywide perspective. So I hope to share like a more local perspective here, and a more kind of micro perspective on how to improve respiratory health, how to reduce air pollution, improve air quality, and what businesses can do themselves to do that, and what we can help them do. So I'm going to look at area-wide joint procurement, what organizations themselves, particularly in multi-tenanted buildings, can do, and some of the advocacy work we do. And last year we won some funding from TfL to pilot a green logistics center. So I'll just describe what that is. But I've included this picture on the right just to show the kind of pollution pre-COVID, modeled on 2016 figures, what you could typically expect over the year in terms of Knox. And yeah, there's obviously a clear connection between air pollution and people's health. So yeah, it is right that we get to grips with this, and COVID has accelerated a lot of the trends that were already happening. And I think the mayor and councils are really scared of a car-based recovery, which is why you're seeing charging, you know, the ULEZ coming back in, and some of the green kind of central London levies coming back in, which is what residents there want, and actually what a lot of our businesses kind of are happy to pay if it makes a better trading environment, which includes the public realm. So this is just a quick chart of Knox levels at different times of the day, so NO2 levels at different times of the day, and just showing you what it was. If you look on the right graph, you can see that's the ULEZ zone. That includes SE1, and the blue line shows you where during the lockdown how low it dropped. And obviously there were buses running, there were still taxis moving around town. There was some freight happening in town, but obviously nothing like the levels that we had before, because there was no one really there. If you go to the Breathe London website, there's like loads more resources there, which you may find interesting. And that drop may be correlated to the diesel vans and lorries that make up 40% of emissions in London generally. So it is 40%. It is like a chunk we should look at, and a lot of that is construction freight as well, it's fair to say. So yeah, it's quite a difficult thing to have a single solution for, which is why I'm going to outline a few different things we're doing. So one of the projects we did was a kind of micro consolidation of waste pilot. Very sexy title. So we typically we had 14 businesses in the pilot, where what you can see in the table is their typical waste collection. So you'd have an AM collection, some would have a PM collection, different streams of waste would get picked up at different times of day, and on different types of vehicles. The distance traveled in BB, that stands for Better Bankside. That's kind of like the distance the vehicle traveled in our area, and at the speed that they did. So we kind of calculated the kind of NOx or emissions, PM emissions and NOx emissions from those movements, and we thought, how can we do it more? How can we do it differently? So we have an electric van, and we collected all streams of waste on this tiny electric van. There's a picture of Back there working, and he collected all streams of waste from the businesses and took it to Borough Market, where they have a waste yard. So this is where the consolidation part happens. Borough Market's waste gets collected daily, so it really has a HGV going in to collect waste and take it out. So we included our waste with theirs, paid them to take our waste away. And this table kind of shows you the quite dramatic improvements. So businesses not in the pilot, getting their waste taken away in the normal way, you can see their kind of emissions there in grams. And then any businesses on the pilot scheme, you've got a driver that knows the area, can let himself into yards, can get the waste out, get it to Borough Market. It's just a very efficient way of doing it. And you can see the clear kind of saving there. So that is a pilot we did, and only with 14 businesses, but we love to roll it out more, but we need to find a better consolidation space, because Borough Market can only handle so much. So this, points to some of the structural problems that we have in our urban realm, and if you can create space for, the consolidation of waste, then we can make some improvements there. Another project we did, just quickly whizzing through, we worked with The Bridge, which is a multi-tenanted building. It's got about 4 different office businesses in there, a gym and a cafe. They all get deliveries at different times of day. And what we're really trying to do here is tackle that demand-led freight that the first speaker talked about, we're encouraging to think about when they get the deliveries, how they get the deliveries. Are there opportunities to consolidate with other people in the building? Encourage people to get their deliveries to home, where the air pollution problem is less acute, most probably, and where they're probably nearer to distribution centres in outer London. So we got a couple of the businesses in this building to use the same cleaning supplier and to get the same milk supplier. And this led, and also some to get bulk deliveries, larger deliveries. And this led to 25 fewer vehicles arriving at reception. And this is that 77 CO2 is an annualized amount if they continue to do this over the year. And that's a picture of Sarah, who's the operations manager, the deputy CEO of the bridge. So that was, and we did that through a delivery and servicing plan. So we kind of did a monitoring exercise before the intervention, and then we made the recommendations based on what we recorded. The other thing we do is advocacy and design. This is a kind of a picture of New City Court. It's a proposed picture. It's the building on the right. It's 37. It's still in planning. It's 37 stories high. It's not built yet because we're a non-statutory consultee of planning applications that come into Southwark in our area, and we kind of scrutinize the plans, and we don't comment on design, but we do comment on transport and green infrastructure. So we scrutinized the plan and kind of compared what their transport planners were saying, and like really looking into the detail of it, and just picking holes in it, and just helping the developer and the council come to a better scheme in the end. And it was great because Great Portland State came to our board meeting, presented the scheme. We looked at the plans. We said, hey, these things could be improved, and they came back and actually improved them. So as a result of our comments and of the council, obviously, they're going to use a consolidation centre in Dartford as to consolidate all their deliveries, all their kind of non-perishable deliveries. They agreed to temporarily separate people and commuters who are coming by walking and cycling and public transport from freight. So instead of freight using those same entrances and so those same streets at the same time of day, they were retimed to earlier and interpeak. So that's something the freight industry can do, is be more flexible on how they deliver and when they deliver. They also agreed to prevent all personal deliveries from going to the building, which is great. Well, put that in their lease. So they kind of like are adopting this green lease approach, and getting people to use the same suppliers. So those are my slides. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the Green Logistics Centre, which we just won some funding to trial that, and that's a kind of like a post room for Bankside, where smaller, medium-sized businesses can get their delivery sent to in bulk, and we will store and keep safe until they ask for their deliveries to be sent to them, which they can do digitally. And COVID has put a bit of a stop to this, but we're going to get it up and running by next February, I believe. So quick run through. Sorry if that was too quick, but yeah, thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Amandeep. I really appreciate it, and that was it was interesting to see the difference between a cross London view and then a very, very localized view. We're obviously running quite a bit late here. That's not anyone's fault in particular, but we're going to have to jump straight into a quick overview of EMSOL. I think if we have a minute or two after that, we'll go straight into a Q&A. And if we don't have time for the Q&A, then we'll be sending the answers to all those questions to everybody who participated. But briefly on EMSOL, So, how do we play a role in all of this? We've heard so many different approaches people are taking. Well, the focus of our software is to empower organizations to take steps every day in reducing transport pollution. We were founded in 2017. We are focused on improving air quality, reducing noise in logistics, construction, and rail. And we do that by fusing noise monitor data, air quality monitor data, and vehicle location data. And our system then analyzes that and identifies pollution breaches and their sources. And what that lets our customers do is take targeted, really specific insights and evidence to drive pollution reduction. So instead of really broad-based things like wholesale fleet replacement, what MSOL lets you do is take very, very specific pollution breach evidence to support very targeted enforcement every single day, not annually or once every 2 years or every quarter, but every single day. We deliver data that attaches air and noise pollution data to the sources of that data. It really simplifies compliance because typically the compliance officers and compliance teams don't have the cycles to cover the huge amount of projects that are happening in their boroughs. We also share all of that data between all the different parties, the local community, the primary contractor, the subcontractors, and then it also preempts and safeguards against tougher regulations because you don't just have to set a static threshold level, you can set any level inside the system that then breaches are taken against. We also can leverage existing monitoring hardware. So if you've already invested in monitoring hardware, if it meets the kind of requirements of polling information in real time, we can usually take that data and incorporate it into the data that we're capturing. So just hearing all the different presentations, why I think this is really important is because, fleet operators don't want to do wholesale fleet replacement, but even Euro 6 vehicles are breaching emission threshold levels when they get out of tune. So they can do simple things like improve that or just, tune up that vehicle in a very specific way without having to do enormous initiatives to test all the different vehicles. We can identify that in a very, very targeted way, which is a big money saver. And it also enables someone that next time that truck is on site, it won't be polluting. So there's lots of very, very targeted things that can happen. And some of the customers that we're working with today, we're obviously talking with Cross River Partnership, Transport for London, Balfour Beatty, Mace, Hanson's, Veolia fleet operators. And so the system is very tried, tested, and true. And we have some great case studies on the website. Now, I'm going to stop there and see if Ben has a moment that he can maybe go through maybe 1 or 2 questions. Ben, do you think we have time for 1 or 2 questions?
I think we have time for 1 or 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've got one that's potentially for everybody, which may be a good way to try and get everyone a little bit involved. And it's around curbside space. I think this is something that we've seen and it's been raised in some of the presentations. Obviously, with the safer streets and COVID and all of these issues, really, it's viewed as a strategic resource. Do you think that when planning and local authorities are doing the planning, that that's actually taken into consideration, the impact it would have on curbside delivery and so on? Potentially, Chris, you might be able to.
Yes, if I can go first on that. I think the jury's out, actually, in terms of answering the question. Sorry, forgive me, I have a clock which is about to strike. If you hear the chimes, I'll talk over it. To what extent this as I say, I think the jury's out. Our experience and of these pop-up cycle lanes. It
Chris?
Doesn't feel that much thought from a national perspective. Sorry, go on.
Oh, Chris, I think your audio is cutting out a little bit. So it might be best to move to Laura if possible, just because I think it's coming through in such a kind of jumpy way.
Sorry, I'm just clear. Mixed picture, jury's out. Like to see the evidence going forwards in answer to that question.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I just think curbside space is something we've come up against in all of our projects, actually, and all the businesses have said about curbside. I think in London it's quite difficult because different local authorities have different views. Space on the roadside is split up like a puzzle in the basis that some will be red routes where TfL have rights over it. We have always sent back our issues of curbside and actually the safety of delivering in a 20-minute period, because we think this is something that's got to come up again. We're hoping that landowners, local authorities can see the data that we've created and really understand that there needs to be a safer way of doing this. I know sometimes I talk about consolidation, but the idea would be consolidation would have less impact on the curbside if we had smaller vehicles, or even have a space where people can deliver that isn't necessarily on the road or there's in a safe manner. So I think it's really, like, I would probably agree with Chris, it's really still a discussion that needs to be had. It's very difficult for businesses because they don't really have the right, and space is a premium really in London.
Thanks very much for that, Laura. I think that we've now probably run out of time. We do have quite a few questions that have come in, so thank you very much for that. I will send them across to everybody who's been asked, and we will send the answers back to you, because I think there's some really interesting questions there, and we might also look to publish a few of them, because I think if we can get the answers, it'd be quite insightful for people.
Yeah, that was a really great session. Thanks so much to the presenters and to the attendees. And we really hope that you got some insights of how investments and process adjustments and technology can help kind of get urban areas, back up to full operating levels, but without that penalty of lots and lots of noise and air pollution. As Ben said, we're going to be sending a link to the recording of this webinar to everyone who registered. We'll also be sending the answers to the questions to everybody. So thanks for asking those, and we're really sorry we couldn't answer them in the time we had. And you should receive the email early next week. But if you have any immediate questions and want to follow up with an MSOL team member, please contact our sales team at the information on the screen, sales@msol.io, or call the number on the screen. So thanks presenters, thanks attendees, thanks Ben for being flexible, and we'll look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Okay, thank you very much.